Happy Monday, everyone. What if I told you that what happens in Moldova matters? And you're thinking, what's a Moldova? Is it a brand of Swiss chocolate? Well, no, it is part of Europe, but Moldova is on the other end of the continent. It's on the southeastern end of Europe. And what is the significance of Moldova? Well, Moldova used to be a Soviet state. And so in 1991, when the Soviet Union broke up, Moldova gained its independence just like everyone else, um, including its other neighbor, Ukraine. Now, Moldova is, of course, its own, it has um, geographical independence. It is a wedge between East and West. It is wedged between Ukraine, Russia, and Romania. Now, there's also another party in all of this, and it's a breakaway region which is not internationally recognized by any country, called Transnistria. It's on the eastern border of Moldova, and it is along what is the Dniester River, which is where it kind of gets its name from, Transnistria. Now, this is not recognized by anybody other than the Russian Federation. And how did Transnistria come to be? Well, after the 1992 split, this region wanted to break away from Moldova and become a part of the Russian Federation, supposedly. Given the way Putin plays, he doesn't necessarily play clean. So I believe this might have been a dirty attempt at conquering a small region. It's a thin sliver of land along the south-flowing Dniester River, and it borders, again, it's a buffer zone between Moldova and Russia, and for a short stretch, I believe, also Ukraine. So southeastern Europe, this river flows towards the Balkans, and Transnistria has its own government, has its own unofficially recognized government, its own currency, and its own microeconomy. Population is only about 300,000, so it's about, it would be like if Fargo-Moorhead in the United States broke away along the banks of the Red River and became its own independent microstate. Fargo is actually economically more powerful than Transnistria and would do much better standing on its own than Transnistria does. But how does Transnistria continue to exist? Well, Putin, of course, has soldiers in Transnistria, about 1,500 of them to be exact. There once was a informal alliance document between Russia and many of its former states, including Moldova. Now, Moldova, about a decade ago, told them to take that document and shove it where the sun doesn't shine. However, because there was a separatist movement in Transnistria, these soldiers were sent by Putin ostensibly as a peacekeeping force, quote unquote. Now, where he's been able to hold Moldova previously by the scruff of their neck, figuratively, is in the form of oil and energy, just like they do in every other regard. So energy used to flow into Moldova and Transnistria from a Russian oil company. Putin cut this off and turned Transnistria and large chunks of Moldova into one giant blackout zone. And this is where, of course, the Moldovans started to get really pissed. And the action that came out of this era is a geopolitical chess move the likes of which I've never seen. That's being proposed. It hasn't been executed yet. And here's why it matters. Moldova is pursuing a merger with the neighboring country of Romania. The significance of this is that Romania is a NATO member. And Moldova would live, as they say in the game of poker sometimes, in order to live, you must be willing to die. And Putin has been using that fact and promoting it to the hilt within Moldova. Now, no, it's going to be the end of your national identity, your national sovereignty. But here's the kicker. 80% of Moldova's citizens already have Romanian passports. This would be the easiest national merger probably in the history of the world. One signature and overnight the boundary would just change. Culturally, they're already connected. Economically, they're even more connected now after Putin cut off the oil and sent, Moldova connected itself to the West for energy through Romania. And so the Chisinau government, Chisinau is the capital city of Romania. Of Moldova. Of course, the capital city of Romania is actually Bucharest. But the Chisinau government has tied itself to the West. And they also pulled off a second masterstroke to follow up with this. The Moldovan National Energy Company, which had been supplied by Russia and controlled by Vladimir Putin, the Chisinau government nationalized it. Now, for a country looking towards the West, this is kind of an unusual move to put something under government control, but stay with me on this one. By nationalizing the National Energy Company in Moldova, the Moldovan government took control away from Putin. Putin has no control over their energy supply whatsoever anymore. Not a single drop. And so what happens in Moldova absolutely matters. And here's where it gets really interesting. Those soldiers that are in Transnistria right now, Transnistria would legally become Romanian territory. Remember what I mentioned about Romania being a NATO member? Well, this territory would become NATO overnight. Those soldiers who are presently basically stranded there would now be considered an invading force. Guess what the defining feature of the NATO Charter is? It's called Article 5. The Russian soldiers would be considered an invading force almost immediately overnight on Romanian territory. And if they're invaders, Article 5 is triggered. An invasion on one member is an invasion on all. So NATO armies could come in and force them out immediately. Send them back to Russia. And then this will also be a gateway. This will also be a gateway to support Ukraine in their war against Russia. Will Ukraine ever become a NATO member? Probably not. Just too much political diciness in that. Not to mention they're getting all the support that they probably need while also building themselves up. According to many neutral sources right now, Ukraine, as it stands right now, is a top 15 military in the world. This would have an immense impact on the Moldovan situation. Romania is not a Chihuahua necessarily either in this regard. And put them in NATO put the Moldovan territory into NATO, and all of a sudden they would have the backing of the world's strongest military alliance. And those Russian soldiers in the present-day Transnistria would be forced out. And I don't know how they would safely get back into Russia, but they would have to be taken back into Russia. So, for these geopolitical reasons, what happens in Moldova absolutely matters. It doesn't necessarily matter to the United States because I don't believe that in this particular instance, as far as the odds of U.S. soldiers being placed in this area, I believe it would be close to zero. I think much of Europe, much of their European allies, on the other hand, would. And I think that would be enough. Again, the Russian army is severely weakening. The country is cannibalizing itself. I don't think they would be able to hold up to a NATO counter incursion into Transnistria. And I think there are plenty of motivated NATO members that would definitely pitch in, such as the newest members in the form of Finland and Sweden. I don't think they would hesitate for 2 seconds. I think the Baltic countries, which are also now NATO members, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, they wouldn't hesitate either, because they, of course, have done everything they can to help Ukraine, because they have a history of being conquered by Russia themselves. And NATO accepted those countries, and those countries gleefully joined NATO on the auspices of needing help to deal with any Russian incursion in the future. And of course, NATO wanted to have them join, because the Baltics would be a launching point for any counter invasion into Russia, and a very, very supreme geographical location as well. So anyway, going on, those are your motivated NATO members who have come in to help Romania/Moldova. But what happens in Moldova absolutely matters these days, especially when it comes to dealing with Russia and Vladimir Putin, and potentially at some form or figure triggering his downfall. I believe his downfall already is imminent, sometime in the near future. So I give it about 5 years at this point. But what happens in Moldova could definitely set that train in motion, and definitely could give it some serious inertia, particularly if they join with Romania and as a result become a NATO member through merger. So anyhow, that's it for my Monday. I'll tip you off on tomorrow's subject already. Tomorrow's subject for Tuesday is going to be why won't Putin end the war in Ukraine? The answer is he can't end it. He also can't keep it going. So he can't end the war and he can't continue it both at the same time. I will explain tomorrow. But in the meantime, while we're waiting for that, you folks have a fantastic Monday, the best one that you can, and I will talk to you tomorrow. Peace out, homies.